If you don't have the cash to start an influencer program, the brand ambassador is good because you can give them an affiliate link and then it could tie back to some revenue at the end of the day. I mean, you could have a static offer for everyone, but again, you want to make people feel special, right? So I got to figure out what the goals are of the creator. Some people could want a lot of equity. Some people just want cash only. Some people just want the product and they just want to do affiliate because they want to test stuff out.
All right. Super excited to have on here Morgan Ingram. He's the founder and chief edutainment officer, CEO of AMP. AMP enables B2B organizations to leverage B2B influencers, subject matter experts to produce pipeline generating content. He's also the creative and content advisor for a number of the hottest go-to-market tech companies out there, some incumbents like Cognizant, some coming up like Comstor and Champify. He was the host of his own podcast, One Up Formula, a creator of the SDR Chronicles, and a full-time sales trainer and content creator at Sell Better. So you can see there's two common threads in his career, creating content and educating. And he's grown a large following as a result of it. Today, we're going to be talking about influencer marketing, how it works, what's the playbook, and how you can use it to generate pipeline. Morgan, it's great to have you on the show today.
Oh, yeah, amazing to be here. Excited to dive into this topic. Lots to talk about here.
Lots to talk about. This is a deep one. Can we get into a quick background, just 1 minute background about yourself before we dive in?
Sure. So started off as a sales development rep, and it was mentioned I created the SDR Chronicles 4 months into that role. And then after seeing success in that role, really went into being a manager as an SDR. And then I really just took sales development to the next level and started training on it with JB Sales and with John Barrows. And that's where I learned a lot about sales. I learned about how to prospect. I learned how to do public speaking, how to speak to large audiences. I learned a lot during that role. And I just saw the intersection of sales and also content and LinkedIn. I brought that all together and created AMP. And so I'm excited to talk about what we've been building and what I've learned in this journey.
This is really interesting. You know, I always hear people talk about how sales is about process, it's about, a system, but how much is public speaking charisma? How much does that move the needle in your opinion, based off your?
Oh, a ton. Yeah. The public speaking is very interesting because it is formulaic in a way. Like there are certain things that you want to do every single time, but it's so intuitive because you have to read the audience. You have to know what they're looking for. You have to set it up in a certain way where people are going to receive the message. And a lot of people don't really think of it that way, but I've learned so much just by thinking of it in a completely different way of how to really be with the audience instead of speaking directly to them.
Yeah, and when you have an audience in front of you, you can basically see their reactions. You can fine tune yourself. I think of it in terms of comedians, what they have to deal with.
Oh my, that's hard. I don't feel. Look, dude, that is extremely difficult to do. I'm calling it out right now. That's hard.
That's the highest level of sales right there, right?
That's hard. Like doing that is very difficult, and then also public speaking and doing sales training is one of the hardest things ever because you're dealing with salespeople and they will write you off so quickly if they don't like what you're saying. And you're going to feel a little uncomfortable about it. So these are just things that I've learned along the way. Very interesting.
One of the best training grounds, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the main topic. And you talk about there's 3 tiers of influencers in influencer marketing.
Yeah.
Could you go over those 3 really quickly for the audience?
Yep. So the 3 tiers are the number one is the brand ambassador. And then the second one is the influencer. And then the third one is the subject matter expert.
Got it. And then tell me more about the brand ambassador, influencer, subject matter expert. How to think about those 3.
The brand ambassador, transparently, is the one that people don't want to be. This is what and let me clarify what that means. So most people, when they go to an organization, they're like, hey, let me be a strategic advisor so that I could use that title to use this leverage to do other things. But effectively, most people on LinkedIn as a strategic advisor, they're technically a brand ambassador. And the brand ambassador, normally their following is about 5 to 20,000 followers, but also it's the definition of what it is. The brand ambassador is someone who is like loosely talking about the brand. They're not as integrated. They don't really know what's going on as much. You might only have 1 point person that you work with. Like it's just not as big, right? And so you might just get an affiliate link just to promote this, or you're getting paid based on the campaign, or you're getting paid very, very little in terms of the monthly that you would get as a brand ambassador. And the thing about brand ambassador is because let's put it this way, your definition of scope isn't as deep. You can work with more brands being a brand ambassador. Like, for example, I was a brand ambassador in college for Gillette. And so I wasn't like an influencer for them, but I was a brand ambassador. So, I helped them with certain campaigns. I did certain things for it. Like it was fun. But I think we have to start thinking more in terms of brand ambassadors first, instead of being like, I want to go build all this different stuff with influencers. It's a great place to test with brand ambassadors first.
How should companies think about brand ambassadors?
I think you should think about them in a couple of ways. So one is if you're doing like a product campaign. So you're like, we have a product update. We want awareness. We want noise. I'd get a lot of brand ambassadors for that because you're trying to create a ton of noise. Or if you don't have the cash to start an influencer program, the brand ambassador is good because you can give them an affiliate link and then it could tie back to some revenue at the end of the day as well. So that's the way I would do it for most companies.
Got it. And how do you kick off a brand ambassador program? One of the things that I get asked a ton of times is like, how do I structure the agreement? When I meet with them, what do I say? How do I reach out? What's the tactical playbook here?
Where do we want to start? That was 4 questions right there. Where do you want to start?
Let's start at the very top. Like, I want to run a brand ambassador program. I have this big product launch that's coming up. I know nothing about this.
Okay. First thing that you want to do is you have to find out who are the right brand ambassadors. And the best place to start asking those questions is to your customers first. So I would go talk to your customers, just ask them, say, hey, like, who do you follow on social? And then that will give you a good understanding of who you potentially can go get. I also would ask your team, let's say you're selling to salespeople, I'd ask your team, who do you follow, right? If you're talking to IT, ask your IT team, who do you follow, right? These are simple steps at the beginning. Instead of going and doing Google searches and finding all this stuff out, like just ask the people that you're trying to get in front of. They're probably going to know and lead you in the right direction. And if you want to do more Google searching and do some more double checking, like that's on you at that point. I'm just saying this is a good start. So once you've identified that, the next step is reaching out. So when most people reach out, they're like, hey, we're doing this campaign. You should work with us. And then that's it. It's just like, that's just not it. So you have to think about reverse engineering and what does the creator want or the ambassador want? They're going to want some compensation at the end of the day. So I think the best way to approach anyone is to say, hey, I've been seeing you post content about X. Our product solves this. Would you be open to checking it out and then talk about a potential partnership? You have to show that you actually know a little bit about their work. And not just like, I love your content, like talk about a piece of content that you actually liked. Cause like, otherwise you're just doing the same things as everybody else. So like the likelihood of you getting that person is super low, unless you're obviously like, Slack coming out of nowhere saying, hey, I want to do some work with you. That's a little bit different, but most people are not at that level. Right. So we have to come in with a different perspective. And this is the perspective that we have to come with to get that person to be interested to have the conversation.
Is there anything besides, knowing about their quality content or compensation? Like for example, I think most brand ambassadors probably want to grow their audience. So if they maybe see your brand growing, or maybe if you have a platform they'd want to come on, or is there anything else that we can offer?
You can, but also to be transparent with you, most people say I can give you exposure, but they don't. So you have to be like, most people aren't like this, but you got to be real with that. You can't say I'm going to get you exposure and then you actually aren't. Like you got to legitimately have more exposure than the person that you're reaching out to. Not, oh, we can get you exposure. And then it's like, okay, I could get I'm getting the same exposure, if not more than you right now. So just be mindful when you say, oh, I can get you exposure. Transparently, a lot of creators are getting annoyed with that term, right? Because it's like, you have to make sure that you're actually offering that. Now, if you do have exposure, if you have a huge list, if you have these things going on, that's fantastic. Another thing that you can also offer is the product for free for 6 months as well, or however long you can offer it. That's a huge value add, because especially if someone is up and coming creating content, maybe they have to pay for all their tech stack, right? Maybe they want to offer their own and they don't have money to pay for that tech. So that's a good way to give them some taste of the product as well. But it also depends on how you're going about it. So those are just some examples of how you want to do it. And another thing that you want to pay attention to when you're identifying the brand ambassador, I always tell people to watch out for character. Now, there are obviously some things that will slip through the cracks, but you want to make sure that at the end of the day that this person you're speaking to is an overall good person too, because if they start posting stuff, it's out of pocket. This is supposed to be your brand ambassador. They're all out of scope. You don't want that. You don't want that to happen.
Got it. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, coming back to now, we've identified the brand ambassadors. The content's good. They align with our brand and what we want to do with the product launch. I'm about to reach out. Do I do it through email? Do I do it through LinkedIn? Do I do it through warm intros? What would the copy be and the first message?
Yeah, so I think the best place to probably LinkedIn messages get crazy too. I think it's a multi-touch approach. I would go to LinkedIn first because you could connect with them and then you could easily, reach out there. And then if they don't get response on LinkedIn, you could do email. And then if you need an intro, you can as well. The good thing is that if you're getting multiple brand ambassadors, let's say if 3 people said yes, you could use that as leverage too, right? And so, for example, of how I'd reach out to someone, I'd be like, hi, Sally, the reason I'm reaching out is, and I love the content that you're posting right now on cold calling, especially that post you said on the intro. I actually shared that with my team. Anyways, we're working on a campaign that we'd like for you to be a part of. I think that your content would be great for that. Would you be interested in hearing me out? It's as simple as that. So it's just like a sales message that I would reach out to a prospect with. I'm leading with the reason on what I saw first. And shout out to Sam McKenna as the show me, you know me, right? Most messages I get around partnering is we have this incredible product and let's talk about partnering. And okay, I get that a lot. And a lot of people get that. So it's not different. You got to show why are you picking this person? Make the creator feel special. And the way you do that is you have to acknowledge their work. So the same thing I just did with video, I would do the same thing in my email and you would have a higher response rate because most people don't get reached out to that way.
Is there something around that our product is in line with your brand? Therefore, we sort of grow together. As our brand grows, it grows your brand because we're growing the category together. Is that why people respond more frequently if it's relevant to them?
That's a good question. I don't think that's a black or white. I think it just depends on the person, on their content, right? So if I'm posting a lot about video and someone talks about growing the category with video, I mean, that's great, right? Because I talk about video a lot. But if you lead with building the category and their content really isn't about that a lot, and you're just trying to get that person, then that wouldn't be a correlating thought. So I think the best way to look at it is if they're posting a lot on X topic, then yes, you can talk about growing the category together. But transparently, the person that you want to work with, they want to know how much money I'm getting paid. Is the founding team that I'm working with or whoever I'm working with, do they align with my core values? Core values are more important than growing the category. And those are the things that people are going to care about. Got
it. And then how do you include the offer in the initial outreach? Do you say you're going to be compensated this amount? And then how would you structure that?
I'm going to have a conversation to figure out what their goals are because I don't know yet, right? So, I mean, you could have a static offer for everyone, but again, you want to make people feel special, right? So I got to figure out what the goals are of the creator. Some people could want a lot of equity. Some people just want cash only. Some people just want the product and they just want to do affiliate because they want to test stuff out. There's so many different things. So I think you have to get on the call and run it like a true discovery to understand what does this person actually want. And I think if you're just here's what we're offering, then that's different. I think the only time that makes sense, the only time that really makes sense is if you're just doing a pay for post. But if you're running a campaign, there's a lot of intricacies that go into that because some people have their own breakdowns. For example, for what we do, we have a team, we have an orchestration of what we do. So it's not like a transactional thing. It's a little bit different with us. But for people who are just starting out, it may be more transactional. But the marketer, the influencer marketing person has to get on the call with the content creator to understand where do they stand and what are their goals and what they're looking to accomplish. Because if you don't know that, you're kind of doing what the salesperson would do. You're just throwing prices out there and then it becomes too transactional for you.
So this seems pretty high touch, actually. You said the influencer marketing person, there's a dedicated person that's supposed to do this in a company, or is it typically head of marketing for a smaller organization?
I would say typically head of marketing for most organizations. The organizations that we work with, they have influencer marketing leads, or even to the degree we work with people and they have a creator program, right? And so it just depends on what level you're at. But yeah, you see head of marketing for smaller companies, but high-end mid-markets, we're starting to see influencer marketing leads. And then at the enterprise level, we see like creator programs and creator like partnership programs as well.
Got it. Can you break down like seed stage, Series A, like how many influencers are we targeting here? What's the effective amount?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the seed and the Series A and the Series B matter, but what matters more is the customer that you're going after. That's going to predicate how many influencers you need to go get. So I would say for like seed round, like you're probably not going to get as many influencers. You're probably going to get more like brand ambassadors with affiliate, because you may not have as much capital to pay the ones that you want yet, unless you give a lot of equity out, which most people may not be willing to do that, but that's just an example. And I would actually spend more time investing into your internal people creating content. That's where I spend a lot of the time. I think once you get to, again, it depends on how much money you get. In Series A to Series C, this is when you need to start looking at influencers, but I would start really paying attention to getting an SME. So the SME, the difference there is someone who just has more in-depth experience in the industry and they have credibility beyond the platform. So what I mean credibility beyond the platform is if they decided to not post content, they still would have authority in what they're saying because people know who they are in the industry, because either they've been posting for a long time or they've just done a lot in the industry. So it's key to have, I think, an SME tagged to your brand in some way. And I think Series A to Series C, you need to start evaluating that. I would say probably Series B, Series C is when you need to get a lot more serious on it, but you can get away with influencers at Series A for sure. But seed, I think you should just focus on brand ambassadors and run affiliates, test it. Don't spend a ton of money on it unless you feel very bullish on it.
I have a couple questions that I want to get to, and then we'll come back to them later. But can we go over what an influencer is and define it against brand ambassador versus SME?
Yeah. So the influencer, I see you're probably within the realm of, you're probably in the realm of probably 1 to 3 years of creating content. You've gotten some brand deals along the way, and you're good at creating content. Within being an influencer, though, you may not have the in-depth experience just yet to be an SME. The SME, the difference here for me, and I've had a lot of people agree or disagree here, is this person just has more in-depth experience in their field and industry than the influencer. The influencer is known for creating good content. The SME is great at their topic matter, and they so happen to influence the audience. Those are two different things. And so it is a very granular distinction, but it is a distinction that you need to make in the market, because there are people who make fantastic content but about a subject, but they don't have the granular context within that subject as other people do as an SME. So if you were to get them on a piece of content, or they're already creating content, they know it very, very well. That's just the distinction point. They just have more experience there in the field long term.
Yep. They are the RevOps VP who's done it for 20 years. They're not the just graduated college SDR who has 200,000 followers. They've done it for 20 years, and they can teach something that people would appreciate.
And there are people at the same time that are SMEs that have also created content along their journey. So they also have big followings, but to your point, they've been in the weeds. They've done this thing. And so they can speak in confidence to the things that they're talking about.
Makes sense. So coming back into the structure, because I always find that for influencer type programs or any kind of partnership, you want to make sure the incentives are aligned and it's a win-win in both cases. So let's say, is there a difference in how you approach a brand ambassador versus an influencer versus an SME? And then what have you seen as the best structures for those win-win situations? Yeah,
brand ambassador, you're going to have like an affiliate based on percentage of either meeting source or revenue. It depends on your model of what you're doing there. So I don't have exact numbers, but it just depends on your model. So I just say that's an example. Or you'll run a campaign and you may pay them $250 to $750 a post or something like that, depending on how many posts you need for the campaign. That's like brand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can we get one specific example for a B2B company that is not self-serve, no credit card swipe, they have to go through a sales process? How does a brand ambassador get compensated? Like, what tools do you use? What's the process? Especially they have to go through demo calls and stuff.
Yeah, sure. There's a good amount of tools out there. So they have, what is it called? Impact. There's a company called Impact, and they have done this. Actually, a couple of things I've actually done, not with the company directly, but through other people. And so Impact has these like certain links that they have for affiliates. And so based on how many people get sourced for the affiliates, they'll get sourced X percentage. So let's say, for example, you post something and you source 10 meetings from it. Then based on those 10 meetings, you would get X amount back, depending on what you do. And then also, if it's sourced by the person and it goes to close, then they'll give you a kickback percentage on that deal that was closed.
How do you track if it was sourced? Is it they click the link, they sign up for
it's through the link? Yeah, it's through the link. It's through the link. Yeah.
Now here's my question.
Yep.
A lot of things can influence pipeline, and that person might have clicked the link, but its sales rep reached out or marketing. Like, how do we definitively say that this person came from that link and not through some other sales outreach? But that came first because the CRM tracked it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at this juncture, when it gets to that granular level, I think that's where, even if they do click it and it was influenced, I always say just bring it back to that person for the creator side. And then obviously, if it was influenced by the salesperson, they're going to get their commissions anyway. So I would just say go back to that original source. If they clicked it and then it was sourced there, and then the salesperson sourced it too, like, let's give that both credit. So typically that's like an all bound credit. We probably heard that a lot. So that's what I've seen so far. But I think as we get the tools to be more granular and can pinpoint that's there, attribution is always difficult to a degree. But that's at least how people have handled it so far.
I love that. It's one of the most pressing questions that I know a lot of organizations facing right now is how to use these affiliate links, especially with B2B software. Okay. How about for influencers?
Okay. So influencers, you're depending on how long the deal is. So you might get like a 6-month deal and you may be asked to post maybe twice a month, and maybe you do like a webinar a quarter. And so the way you're going to get comped here is based on what is your event. I would say what your event pricing is. So you need to know how much you charge to show up to an event. That's just, I think everyone should know what that means. And then how much do you charge per post? And then also as well, you can look at the duration of the deal. So if it's 3 months, you might charge more than if it's 6, right? Or maybe you're taking a longer term deal because you get equity as well. So the influencer can get a small portion of equity here if they want to. But these influencer deals typically can be between that 3 to 6 realm month, or you can be an influencer just for the campaigns as well. So, I mean, all the things that I said about brand ambassador, you can include all those deals too. You can get all that stuff done on the sponsorship level.
Do you have a standardized program? If you were a company, would you have, this is our standard rate, or would you tier it up based off the influencer?
Based on the influencer. So yeah, that's what I would do. It also like, if you want to go more granular, but I would keep it basic. But if you want to go granular, like each influencer for each company would probably be priced differently depending on who they're looking to target too. So just because someone has crazy amount of engagement, like that engagement might not be the engagement that you actually want. Because of their persona. So it's also, you got to gauge that too.
Makes sense. And then how about the success metrics to see if the influencer is doing a good job? Like podcast follows.
Success metrics, depending on what success looks like for the organization. Some people run influencer marketing as pure play brand awareness. Full stop. Now, obviously at the back end, everyone's going to be like, what were the results? What happened there? Some people just run it as a pure play brand awareness. But if you're looking at there's 3 components. There's the brand awareness, there's the revenue impacted, and then there's like community expansion. So if you look at brand awareness, that's effectively like, are people talking about us more? It's an intangible, right? Are people talking about us more? Are we getting more awareness? Are people like talking about it on calls, dark social? We know these things. So that's like an intangible, but at least people know what's going on. The revenue is what we're talking about with like affiliate links or even like webinars. Are we bringing in new people that we haven't brought in before? Is it impacting deals? Are people coming in inbound and saying, I heard about this from Morgan? Like, are people in sales cycles saying, I love this content and I want to talk to y'all more? That's where the revenue impact is. And then you have community expansion. So community expansion is basically like social lift, but that's like, are we increasing our followers on our company page? Are we increasing our things on other social channels, like on YouTube? I'm just making things up, but like a YouTube channel. Are we seeing a lift here? And so those are the 3 things of how I look at it. But again, it all is going to tie back into what are the OKRs or the actual priorities of the individual of who's running this program.
Got it. That makes sense. Any other like tricks of attribution? You mentioned that, is it tying back to the deals? Is there like a field that you create in the CRM that said this person heard about us from this influencer that the sales reps have to update?
In the fields inside of the CRM?
Just wondering if there's any kind of attribution tricks that people can use to track their influencer program.
Yeah, it's just in the like inbound. You would have like, you heard about us through either the influencers that you're working with. So in most of the organizations, we have a form drop down. It's like, did you hear about this from like Morgan, or did you hear about this from like this webinar show that we created, to see like how many people are coming through and clicking that. We all know at the end of the day, some people will just click nothing, right? Or just won't put anything, and then it's like, okay, but we know it's from somewhere. But that's just a way to solve that as much as possible.
Yeah, so I noticed that you're working Cognizant, and there's a quantitative ROI metric associated with the influencer program, the content program. So just curious how you guys track it.
Yeah, so we do the drop down, like I said. So it's, did you hear this from Morgan? Did you hear this from what we call our cold calling lives? We also track event participation. So our attendance rate, our registration, our engagement rate, and then are we increasing that quarter by quarter? And then we also see, based on the MQLs in their example, is that increasing time over time with the pipeline? Are we bringing in new people that are impacting the pipeline based on who's come to the webinars? So those are things that we look at.
So you are tracking these individual, like that person came from a webinar, didn't see us. We didn't see them in the CRM before, that person, and all these things add up to,
yep,
it's like 2x. Okay.
Exactly. Awesome.
Last question here before we get into the end, which is the subject matter experts. How do you structure it differently from influencer and brand advocate? This
is where the expertise comes into play. This is the main distinction. The influencer, all those things I just mentioned, they're in or creating the content. The subject matter expert becomes consulting plus content. So you're doing everything I just said, but now it's to the next level. You are giving input on what should the creative content strategy be for this organization, and leading that as well. So because you understand the persona so well, you could speak to the marketing team and tell them how they should market to these people. Because I've been doing sales training, sales coaching, and been in sales, I know what the salespeople effectively want in events or things of that nature, right? So I could speak to the marketing team. So now I'm doing the events, I'm doing the content, but also I'm speaking to customers. I'm now doing like in-person shoots. I'm doing Masterclass. We just did that with the client. So it just takes it to the next level because of your expertise. So we're not just doing posts. We're not just doing events. We're doing a lot. We're consulting, plus we're doing content. And now we're adding even more context and expertise to the audience.
Got it. And then how should subject matter experts like yourself be compensated?
So this becomes very similar to what we've already discussed. So we get comped on a month-to-month basis, so monthly retainer. And then we also get comped on, in some scenarios, it can be equity, right? The equity portion typically ends up being more because you're consulting and also you're doing content. So you're playing a bigger picture. Like from the subject matter expert standpoint, like we're affecting revenue through content. So we're talking to the sales team and the marketing team, and we know the executives and we know the customer success team. It's just bigger, right? And so it's similar to the influencer, but the contracts overall are just bigger. They're more long-term. I have annual contracts with clients. Like it's just longer at the end of the day. Now the influencer can have, I'm not going to disregard this. The influencer can have annual contracts, but in this regard, these are typically 6 to 12 month contracts because there's a lot of things that we're doing and there's a lot of moving pieces. So they end up being longer in that regard.
Love it. This is like proper advisor influencer role that I know you've talked about in the past. Yep. Advisors, influencers, two different things. Morgan, it is fantastic. I think we could talk about this for another hour or two, but I know you got to go.
We could. We
definitely could. This is just scratching the surface of it.
Yeah.
But how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, if you want to find more about me, it's at Morgan J. Ingram across all socials. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing, the company is called AMP. And if you're looking like, hey, I need help with my influencer marketing program, I don't know where to go, that's what we're helping out with.
Please reach out to Morgan for influencer marketing. He's one of the best out there. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.